And in one of the stories that are associated with this very, very deep cavern in the Horselock is the suggestion that it was the access to an underground kingdom that was ruled by the goddess Venus. And one or two stories have told of human adventurers who have been lured into it, but the noises that come up from the depth of that cavern are so similar to the recording that you just played me. And if we tie in the Siberian mystery with the well-authenticated legends of strange noises coming up from the depth of the cavern under the Horselock in Thuringia, then maybe we have got two access points to a very strange mystery. And of course we go back to Eric von Daniken and all his strange theories of aliens who we've been, they've been here before, and his idea that humanity has been guided and controlled by various extraterrestrials. And von Daniken puts forward many theories about huge labyrinths of tunnels deep, deep below where we are now, as though something very mysterious lived down there. And it's, I think that these mysteries will tie in together, like a kind of unified field theory of mystery.
There you go.
Yeah, I wouldn't really suggest that it was kind of go along with the idea that there's hell down there, but there's certainly something very, very odd, making some incredibly odd noises. I would say, as a guy who's interested in psychology, that the human mind abhors a vacuum, and we try to explain and make sense of anything we see or hear. Now, the old steam trains used to make very interesting noises as they rattled over the rails and the points, and people would claim that the train was talking. I can hear what it's saying as it was going. They would imagine that they were words that the train was speaking and not just a rattling noise, because we try and make sense of that which has no sense. And listening to that strange recording that you played me that the Russian scientists found at that depth, are we trying to make words out of what is just a natural sound, an uneven sound? And what was the other story you wanted to ask me about, Steve?
The other story was a story I had heard a while back about the Titanic and some archaeologists in Egypt who had discovered a mummy that was supposed to be a cursed mummy, and that this mummy was placed on the Titanic. Have you heard anything of that story?
I have indeed, yes. Now, one of the chapters in the treasure book deals with curses and allegedly cursed treasure. And just to come back with the idea of the cursed mummy and the cursed tomb, I was at school with a teacher named Harry Carter, who was a very popular member of staff with us kids. He taught us craft work and art, a lovely fella. And his cousin was Howard Carter, who had gone with Lord Carnarvon to the tomb of Tutankhamun, King Tut, and the alleged curse on the mummy of Tutankhamun and Tutankhamun's tomb. And so I had, as it were, an indirect link with Howard Carter through my teacher, who was his cousin.
Oh, okay.
Now, the idea, so in other words, I've been interested in Egyptian curses and cursed mummies since I was a schoolboy, because we got this, us kids were fascinated because our teacher was the cousin of the guy who had opened the tomb. And we felt, hey, we know a man who was a cousin of the man who got into the cursed tomb of Tutankhamun. Now, the mind, going off just at a slight angle on this, I believe, and you as a friend with a scientific approach to all of this, Steve, would be the first man to say that the power of the human mind, which is constantly being tested scientifically, is very often far more than we give it credit for.
Absolutely.
We don't really know how much it can accomplish, what it can achieve. Now, can it be used either for good or evil? Let's go back to my friend David Everson, who had the near-death experience, and who, as a result of something that happened inside his mind, or something that happened on a psychic realm, completely repaired his human body, the physical body. Now, if that can be benign, then there may be malign forces, evil forces, dark forces of the mind. We look at the number of witches who have allegedly cursed people and caused them to die or to become very seriously ill. And I think a lot depends. Jesus himself said this, that if somebody believed in his power, they could be healed. But it was a lack of faith which prevented the healing, or was an obstacle to the healing. And so, if someone believes in the power of a curse, then he is vulnerable, perhaps, to that curse.
I love the way you put that.
Yeah, and I think that, you see, if there was a cursed mummy, I know the story of the cursed mummy allegedly aboard the Titanic, which was what brought her to the bottom. Let's just suppose that there was some mental power. The only thing that was needed to sink the Titanic in an area full of icebergs was not some vast force that would push the ship or push the iceberg. All that was needed was a force which could control the ability of the lookout man to give ample warning of an iceberg, or to control the mind of the, to have a bad influence on the mind of the ship's commander. See, looking back with hindsight, having seen the berg, 1,000 times better to hit it full on and crumple the front of the ship than to miss the thing and fail to avoid it completely and rip the whole side open, which is what sank the Titanic. To have taken that thing head on would have crumpled in the first few feet of the Titanic, but would only have affected the first 2 air chambers, flotation chambers.
Yes.
And although there'd have been awful damage, she'd have remained afloat.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if the captain's mind, let's just say there is some malign influence working on the ship, it doesn't have to affect vast masses like the iceberg or the ship. It only has to have a bad influence, a dark influence, a deleterious influence on the mind of the captain or the mind of the lookout man to get him to look the wrong way or to shout late. You see what I mean? That the power of the curse hasn't got to shift thousands of tons of steel or thousands of tons of ice. The power of the curse has only got to make the personnel ineffective or to make the wrong decisions. That's just a thought. But that is, if there was something on board and somebody suspected it was there, do we work as efficiently when we think there is something evil affecting us? Tell you what I'd like to tie this in with, and this idea of if you believe in the thing, it can damage you, and if you don't, it can't. Not 2 yards from where I'm sitting is a glass-fronted display case in which I have a lump of stone that came from the floor of the Barbados vault. And I was asked by my director when I was making the documentary, could I contact a voodoo man or an Obeah man in Barbados who would talk to me about the vault. So I did, and it was difficult to get hold of one, but I eventually got one. And just before I was interviewing him in the vault, I had picked up this stone, shoved it in the pocket of my jeans to take home and put in my china cabinet. And the first thing the guy said was, under no circumstances must anything be removed from the vault. And he told me a horror story about some guy who had actually taken a stone years before, and he lost his job, his relationship with his lover had broken up, he'd become ill, and everything that could go wrong had gone wrong. He sent the stone back with a request to please put it back, and his relationship was mended. He got a better job than he'd had before, and his health was fully restored. And so I've got this old beer man saying to me, never, under any circumstances, take anything. And this thing was sitting in the pocket of my jeans. And like you, I'm a scientist, and I tended to chuckle about it. And I thought, well, there we are. It's been here 10 or 12 years, and I'm sort of waving to it now in my china cabinet. If you're a scientist like you or me, you take a scientific attitude, and you say, that thing can't hurt me. Well, a piece of stone out of a vault, that's not going to do me any harm. And if you chuckle at it, as the great Martin Luther once said in his advice to people who were afraid that they were being attacked by Satan, he would say to them, the devil, that proud spirit, cannot bear to be mocked. So, he said, if he will not leave you when you quote scripture at him, laugh at him instead, and he will go.
And I've had a friend who asked me one time, he said, if you have different children who are about to take a test in school who worship different gods, and they all pray to their different gods, and they all get a positive result, does that not mean all those gods exist? And I said, no, you have a child who has the comfort of a God helping him on the test, which eases his mind, takes the stress off, and allows him to do better on the test. So it wouldn't necessarily prove that that God exists. It's his faith that exists and makes him score better on the test.
I'd go with you 100% on that one, Steve. If you, I've done a lot of martial arts over the years, and I have sometimes looked at the opponent in the other corner and thought, wow, this guy looks like something out of a Hammer horror film. I can't beat him, and I lose. And I go in on another occasion, and I think, well, this guy looks like Frankenstein's monster, but I'm tougher than he is. I'll pull him apart. And I smash the guy in the first round. And it's so much is in your mind. Just like your example of the examination. You know, if you go in thinking, I can't do this, I don't know how to do this, I haven't revised enough, you'll fail. If you say, as you say to a number of different gods, please, O God, who I believe in, will you help me? And you really believe that he is a caring, loving God, by whatever name you call him, then you will feel confident that you've got that help, and you'll sail through the exam. Yeah, I think that when you and I were talking earlier, before we went into the detail about the curse of the mummy, the idea of feeling really fit and well and on top of things. I, last summer, having been incredibly fit all my life, and as an into martial arts, a qualified weight training instructor and all the rest, swimming, I started feeling a little bit breathless. Went to my GP, who said, hey man, you're suffering from arrhythmia, I want you straight in the hospital. And got zoomed off down to a big hospital in London, at St Mary's at Paddington, where we've got the top man on electrocardiology. And he put it all right for me, and he fitted a gadget, which is called an ICD unit, a defibrillator. Now, he laughed and said, I can tell you're a weight trainer because I've got plenty of room under your chest muscles to fit the gadget. And my first thought was, okay, I've got an ICD unit in my chest, and I've been cured of arrhythmia, and I do everything that I've done before. I feel absolutely, and I say to myself every morning, I feel like a 20-year-old. I'm 100% fit, and I've got other pals who have maybe had a heart problem or and they say, I have to take it easy. I've got to be careful, and they limit themselves. Now, I'm not saying if you've got medical advice to limit your activity, but for me, it's just as if it had never happened, and I still feel 20 again, and I'm going to go on feeling 20, and I start the day saying, I'm 100% fit. I've got all the energy I need and stuff.
Yeah.
And it sounds like we got 90 seconds left, Steve.
Yes, we're running out of time here, and I hate